In light of this present darkness in which we find ourselves in this Rorate Mass, and in light of the fact that today marks the feast of St. John of the Cross, I thought it would be appropriate to read and reflect a little bit about one of his most famous poems that he ever wrote, called The Dark Night. Its content serves as a fitting reflection for us who have left the comfort of our homes in the dark night to come and find Christ in the darkness of this church. The Dark Night narrates the journey of the soul from its bodily home to its spiritual union with God. And the journey is called the Dark Night. Darkness representing the hardships and the difficulties the soul inevitably encounters when it detaches from the sensory world and the flesh in order to strive towards union with God. So St. John of the Cross offers 3 reasons for calling this journey towards God a dark night. He says, the first has to do with the point of departure, because individuals must deprive themselves of their appetites for worldly possessions. This denial and privation is like a dark night for all of one's senses. So for example, departing from your beds in your house this morning at say 5 a.m. and getting all the children up to get here, I guarantee you most of you experienced that as a privation of the senses, a dark night that you had to endure in order to make this journey here. Then he says the second reason refers to the means or the road along which a person travels to this union. Now this road is faith, and for the intellect, faith is also like a dark night. So, for example, you could be asking you who in God's good name actually came up with a Mass at 6 a.m. on the only day of the week that I could actually sleep in. Well, there's no answer to that. It's totally unintelligible. You have to accept it by faith. The third reason pertains to the point of arrival. So it's the point of departure, the means to get to God, and the point of arrival, which he says is namely God. And God is also a dark night to the soul in this life. So just as when you exit from a dark place and you look into the sun, your eyes feel pain because they're not accustomed to the light. So we who are born in exile and in original sin, actually the closer we draw to God, we can experience it as a very painful experience because we're not accustomed to the power of the light emanating from his presence. So the central idea is that our journey towards God happens in the darkness, in dying to ourselves and running after the Word made flesh in darkness, with only the fire of our love burning in our hearts. And St. John of the Cross, he wrote this poem, just to give you context, while he was locked in a chimney for months at a time by his own confreres in the Carmelite order, because he refused to compromise the rules of their order while everybody else around him wasn't following the faith. I will now recite the poem, The Dark Night of the Soul. One dark night, fired with love's urgent longings, the sheer grace, I went out unseen, my house being now all stilled, in darkness and secure, by the secret ladder disguised, the sheer grace. In darkness and concealment, my house being now all stilled. Oh, that glad night in secret, for no one saw me, nor did I look at anything, with no other light or guide than the one that burned in my heart. This guided me, more surely than the light of noon, to where he was awaiting me. Him I knew so well, there in a place where no one else appeared. O guiding night, O night more lovely than the dawn, O night that has united the lover with his beloved, transforming the beloved in her lover. Upon my flowering breast, which I kept wholly for him alone, there he lay sleeping, and I caressing him, there in a breeze from the fanning cedars. When the breeze blew from the turret, as I parted his hair, it wounded my neck with its gentle hand, suspending all my senses. I abandoned and forgot myself, laying my face on my beloved. All things ceased. I went out from myself, leaving my cares forgotten among the lilies. St. John once said, in the dark night, bright flows the river of God. In the dark night of our journey here, bright flows the river of light, the river of your faith, and it will soon flow down this aisle toward the sea of God's love flowing towards us as it becomes emblazed on this very altar, where he himself comes to join us in the dark night of our exile and illuminate it with the fire of his presence. Truly, in this dark night, bright flows the river of God as he comes to meet us. Let us approach him with no other light or guide than the one that burns in our own hearts, for it shall guide us more surely than the light of noon to where our beloved comes to meet us.